God's not even alive.
Because you doubted God's aliveness, you've been locked into a secular prison until you watch and explain all the God's Not Dead movies. Live or die. The choice is yours.
Wait, is Kevin Sorbo Jigsaw now? Well, the good news is this movie is probably made by PureFlix, so we probably won't have to see Kevin Sorbo fully nude. Oh, and it's a Harold Kronk film, which means it's sure to feature all of Kronk's signature directorial flourishes. All you Kronk heads out there know what I mean.
It's all coming together.
Wait, this movie is called God Is Dead? That's weird. I thought, oh my God, you almost got me with that one, Jesus. Anyway, the movie opens with a ton of apparent college freshmen being dropped off by parents at college. Specifically, Hadley University, which is apparently not real and possibly explains why these brilliant students all evidently live with their parents, even though our main character claims that his intention is to become a lawyer. Gonna be kind of tough with a fake degree from a fake college you walk to from your parents' house, bub. Anyway, that character is named Josh Wheaton. And no, he didn't direct The Avengers. He's not even related to him. They're spelled totally differently. What's wrong with you? Anyway, we also see a woman buying wine. And okay, pause the tape. You see right there where it says music by Will Musser? That is incorrect. What it should say is music by Will Musser and Jordan Breeding. I'm 100% dead serious. Let me tell you a story. It was the summer of 2013. I had just graduated from a real college and was living in America's cultural epicenter, Harrisonburg, Virginia. And like thousands of broke and or high musicians before me, I opened up Craigslist. After scrolling past offers to non-sexually cuddle with some very nice guys, I spotted a post demanding to know, can you sound like explosions in the sky? The poster claimed he needed some ambient guitar for his movie. And right away I was like, yeah, sure, I can record some music for this dude's homemade sex tape or whatever. And I hopped on GarageBand, plucked out a couple of guitar lines soaked in pretty much all the reverb, and within 20 minutes, the composer excitedly called to say he loved the track. And the movie he was making was so big, he couldn't even forward me any clips for fear of leakage. And I'm like, yeah, right, there's probably tons of leakage. Like pee leakage, probably. Anyway, the composer offered me $200 to insert some guitar on a few pieces he'd already written, and obviously I immediately accepted, and then excitedly ran downstairs to tell my roommates that I'd try to remember them once I was a world-renowned film composer, even though you ate all my cookies that one time, Tim. Later that day, I received my first assignment. The email contained literally nothing except for one literal explosions in the sky track. The movie was already edited, apparently. They just needed some scrub to come in and rip off explosions in the sky as close as possible without actually breaking copyright law and or to be the fall guy if somebody needed to go to jail, which I realize now is ironic. I couldn't just copy a song's vibe. I had to match every single movement. If the music swelled at 37 seconds, you better believe that my track needed to swell at 37 seconds because I had to match songs perfectly, beat for beat, without matching them too closely, you know? Because jail and death and hell. To make things even more difficult, I'd often send off a track only to immediately receive feedback like, hey, actually, this scene could be a little bit sadder. I mean, she has cancer, or can you make this more triumphant? It's literally the climax of the whole movie. Again, I had never seen a single scene. I don't know if this much back and forth for work for hire guitarists is typical, but then again, God's Not Dead was for the Lord, so it needed to be perfect. And so it went for over a year. It went so long, in fact, they offered me an additional $125 for my efforts. What's worse, I wasn't even credited for my work because I was technically a work for hire and because I'm technically an idiot who didn't think to ask. All that remains from that weird time in my life is a track of original score excerpts and an inbox full of emails asking for more ambience. Oh. And $325. At least the movie itself only made $64 million in theaters, so at least I've got this video. But anyway, enough about me, because the sleeping woman named Amy, she just woke up and she's late for something. Then the Muslim girl gets out of her dad's car and takes off her face covering because she's clearly been seduced by Hadley's wild party culture. You can drop your kids off in college, but you can't control what they wear on their face. Josh signs up for a semester classes outside at a little student fair or something because this is a real college, and everybody that made this movie also definitely went to real college. There's also maybe the hint of a butt crack in the background. This college is freaking nuts. Also, a Chinese guy signs up for some classes, but the student helping him has apparently never heard of this China place.
What does PRC stand for?
People's Republic of China.
Seriously?
Guess Hadley's not that big on geography. The dude signing Josh up is like, dude, don't take this intro to philosophy class because that professor's a hard ass and hates Christians. I can see your little Jesus chain. He'll probably literally beat you to death. Have you seen Hercules? And Josh is like, oh no, but my schedule. So he takes the class anyway. Oh, also Josh has a girlfriend who is actually voted by Esquire as one of 18 beautiful women America won't be able to resist this summer, although it kind of seems like this movie came out and then American casting directors have managed to resist her pretty much 100% of the time. As it turns out, Josh's philosophy class is taught by Hercules, as I mentioned.
Hello, Mother.
And we immediately know he's evil because he has a goatee, and you know who else has a goatee?
Satan.
Anyway, Professor Hercules Lucifer forces every student to sign a piece of paper saying that God is dead because he doesn't want to have to prove that God's dead because it's a waste of time and also maybe he killed him. Does Hercules kill gods? Seems like he has to have, right? Was that a good joke?
Disappointed!
Anyway, most of the kids are like, hell yeah, God's dead as shit, A+ bitches, but Josh is conflicted because he doesn't think God is dead. So Professor Hercules says, you know what? This class is boring anyway. Here's the deal. For the next 3 classes, you and I will debate God's relative aliveness, and G-Dog here will decide if you pass or fail.
G-Dog to rock trigger.
Also, the rest of this class. Also, it's college. It's freaking wild. Anyway, Josh tells his girlfriend, and she's like, you idiot, you're throwing away our future. You'll never get into law school with anything less than an A+ in Intro to Philosophy from a fake college.
Sorry for having the next 50 years of our life planned out.
That's just who I am.
But Josh is like, well, I think God wants somebody to defend him, which feels insanely presumptuous. Look out, everybody. God's on the ropes, and he's chosen Josh here to fight Hercules for him. So anyway, she breaks up with him because that's what we call raising the stakes.
I'm not even sure there are words to describe what I'm feeling right now.
Josh is sad, so he briefly speaks with his pastor guy who dresses like he got shat out of a Nirvana concert and who has an entire pointless subplot where he tries to take this other pastor to Disney World, but they have 3 separate cars die on them because the rental car guy is an idiot and an actor. Sorry, being redundant. So they never go to Disney World because God, maybe? More high stakes shit right there. Also, this pastor boy tells Josh, yeah, do the debate. God would have. Probably. Meanwhile, Amy has finally gotten her shit together and drives her car covered in I Heart Evolution bumper stickers to ambush interview Willie from Duck Dynasty. Remember that show?
What do you want?
She demands that he account for the fact that his family's duck calls result in the deaths of ducks. And he responds that he does not give a shit about ducks, which is fair. She has no answer for that, but God does apparently because then Amy gets cancer.
I don't have time for cancer. I'm too busy.
Also, her boyfriend has an answer for that and breaks up with her because of the cancer that God gave her because of the ducks.
I think I have cancer.
This couldn't wait until tomorrow.
Meanwhile, the Muslim girl puts her face covering back on at the end of a long day of totally real college before her dad picks her up, and then an apparent lesbian chick walks up and she's like, you're really beautiful. I wish you didn't have to wear a face covering, which is kind of a tasteless thing to say. Okay, so now on to the first debate, and it's clear that Josh's spiritual gift is PowerPoint. If you don't believe in God after witnessing those graphics, I don't think there's anything Josh can say that will change your mind. He makes the case that the Big Bang is just another way of saying that, God banged everything into existence. Then Hercules counters by saying, nuh-uh, Stephen Hawking said that's not true because gravity. And Josh has no answer for that. Then Hercules stops Josh in the hallway after class and claims that he is God, which, does that mean Kevin Sorbo doesn't exist? Anyway, Hercules is dating the woman from the beginning of the movie that was shopping. The one who be shopping. Her name is Mina, and she has both a mom with dementia and is an apparent Christian. How and why she date Hercules is unclear, but it may have something to do with the fact that they hooked up after her freshman midterms. Nothing clouds a horny Christian teen's judgment like Hercules. They argue a bit, and she mentions that she left the wine that she bought in the car too long, so it probably tastes like shit. This may come to play later. So now it's later. Hercules is hosting a dinner party for his philosophically minded friends, and Mina's handing out food, and she gets upset because they're mocking Josh, and they get upset because the wine tastes like shit. So she and Hercules both knew it would taste like shit, but they served it anyway, and then Hercules shits on her for her shitty wine. I don't think they have a good relationship.
Oh, hey, did you pick up the bottle of wine I wanted?
I did. I left it in the car.
It's in the car. Don't worry about it. Nina, this wine is awful.
Talk about your grapes of wrath.
Side note, the Chinese guy's dad, not happy.
上帝，为什么说上帝？
So now it's the second debate, and Josh has come prepared with both his divine PowerPoints and some anti-Hawking quotes from John Lennox.
Professor John Lennox, who teaches mathematics and philosophy. John Lennox, the professor of mathematics and philosophy.
They don't say who Lennox is other than a mathematics professor, but it's probably worth pointing out that he's a Christian mathematics professor. Doesn't make him wrong, but if everybody's just offering up quotes from smart people on their own teams, then it doesn't feel like there's a lot to be gained here. He goes on to say that evolution can't explain why modern animals kind of sprung up so recently, which, I mean, probably sounds like a good point, but also, I doubt it's airtight. Before we get too far into that plot twist, Hercules knows some Bible verses.
Thou art wise, and with thou all wisdom shall die.
It turns out that his mom died when he was 12, and he blames God for not saving her. Oh, and remember that Muslim girl? Well, she's at home listening to the filthiest smut I've ever seen on an iPod Mini. A sermon by Franklin Graham. Does anybody watching this know who that is? I doubt it, but her dad sure freaking does because he beats the shit out of her and throws her out of his house, which is legitimately really high stakes because now she'll have to, I don't know, drive herself to college? Elsewhere, the pastor guy is decidedly not eating his cheeseburger, and he tells Mina that she has a Cinderella complex, a term he didn't coin, okay? Because she dates Hercules and gets her worth from him rather than from Jesus. She says, that makes sense, and she breaks up with Hercules in front of his friends. That'll make him feel better about things. Truly, this story is a twisted web, because now we're back watching Amy crying because of the cancer. Also, it's important to note that this was the scene I was supposed to make sadder, again because of the cancer, and as you can tell, I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
New post.
Okay, now we're at the final argument, and Josh says evil exists so we can have free will. And also, there's basically no reason for morality unless you ascribe to a certain faith, which that's not necessarily true. You could also just not want to steal shit in the hope that others won't steal your shit. Social contracts and all that, but whatever. Then Josh pivots and goes for the jugular by yelling that
Science supports his existence. You know the truth.
Even though pretty sure that's not settled. But he then pulls a few good men on Hercules and gets him to admit that he hates God. And yet, as Josh points out, how can you hate somebody who doesn't exist? Checkmate, bitch! All the students stand up and say, yeah, God exists, because it's just that easy to mass convert 18-year-olds apparently. Also, my guitar rips at this part.
Is God dead?
More like explosions in my sky and your butt. Meanwhile, the dick lawyer who broke up with Amy is apparently Mina's brother, so he goes to visit their demented mother and he says to her that life's not fair. How come you have dementia and my life is the tits? I mean, maybe it's because you're 40 and she's like 1,000 years old, but whatever. His mom says it's because Satan sometimes puts us in a comfortable jail to distract us from God, and to that I say, I wish I was in a comfortable cell. Satan put me in a shitty cell. Oh, well, there's one major plot development that's been brewing in the background I forgot to mention. The gosh danged Newsboys are in town. You know who I mean. Your favorite band. Everybody's favorite band. So then Josh, fresh off his scintillating victory, takes the Chinese kid to the concert because he'd already bought the ticket for his ex-girlfriend, but she left him, so now he's dating the Chinese kid, I guess. Honestly, in fact, every single major character goes to that concert because, again, Newsboys. You're not gonna miss that. No! Amy even breaks into the Newsboys' dressing room and gets prayed for by the actual Newsboys. I can't believe they got them to pray for her. I bet it cured everybody in the crew's AIDS and erectile dysfunction and stuff. In real life. Even sad Hercules decides to go to the concert because he thinks Mina will be there and he wants to patch things up, but unfortunately it's raining and he just gets obliterated by a hit and run. By this point, the pastor guy's finally gotten a car that works and he's fully on his way to Disney World, but he sees Hercules' twitching body in the street and decides he should go check on it. Good thing he does too, because the pastor manages to convert Hercules literally in the street while he's dying, like on his death street. So remember, audiences, forget all that logic and argumentative crap we spent this whole movie on. All you need to believe is the fear of dying. So believe, nerd, or God will just plow you with a car. Even worse, the Duck Dynasty guy is at the concert. He just shits all over Hercules for being an atheist. Then the concert starts. Amina is having the time of her life, fully unaware that the still warm corpse of her recent boyfriend is rotting in the rain like 3 blocks away. That will be quite a post-concert downer, although maybe she took a lot of Molly. I don't know, I've never been to a Newsboys concert. Then we cut back to the dead body in the street, and the other pastor is like,
What happened here tonight is a cause for celebration.
because I guess he too hates Kevin Sorbo. Also, because I guess this means everybody in the class gets an A. In the credits, we learned this movie was inspired by a bunch of real court cases, apparently, and we're invited to join the movement, which I assume means becoming a Christian and not just trying to hit and run atheists until they believe, but I mean, it could be both.
That's from your dad.
What the? Why?
You know why.
Oh, shit. Kronk is back. Return to the king, baby. Kronkhead, sound off in the comments. Let's get hashtag Kronk is Krunk trending.
Anyway.
We open with Sabrina, the middle-aged powerless witch, heading somewhere to not do magic, probably. We then see the pastor from the last movie, who I will begrudgingly reveal is apparently named Dave, and he's apparently contracted some sort of neurological disorder. This also may explain the noticeable limp, or maybe his legs are sore from kicking so many libs right in their buttholes. Also, the African pastor's back to pursue his doctrine, what I'm just gonna assume is friendliness.
Why are you always so sad?
And also the Chinese guy named Martin is back, and he's got exactly 147 questions about the Bible, which, once answered, will finally prove that God is alive for good. Wait! Pause! Just Will again? Look, I was rehired for God's Not Dead 2, Die Harder, but I made the mistake of asking for a staggering $1,000, and they got pissed, only gave me $600, and then GND 2 is the last feature film I ever scored. But thankfully, I went out on a high note. Anyway, Sabrina tends to an old man because we need at least one old sickly character, and that grandma from the last one is definitely dead. Oh, and Sabrina is single, ladies. We also meet Brooke, who is sad about something, but also she's about to be cheered way the hell up because her friend's parents are making tacos tonight.
My mom's making tacos tonight.
She's a high school junior at the same school where Sabrina works, and again, no, it's not Hogwarts. I would tell you if it was. Stop asking.
Hogwarts is for sinners.
Exactly. Anyway, Sabrina teaches AP history, and Brooke wears a shockingly short skirt for a Christian movie. I mean, you can almost see her taint.
You like got yourself for that one.
Taint.
She's probably dressed really provocatively because she's struggling to process her brother's death and because her parents just don't seem to care about it, especially her mom, who is on Wizards of Waverly Place, which is yet another character associated with witchcraft, which is interesting. But anyway, Sabrina and Brooke share a moment where Sabrina tells her Jesus will make her feel better about her dead brother. Even better, when Brooke's parents give away all her dead brother's shit, because it's not like he needs any of it, one of the workers hands Brooke his personal Bible. Apparently her brother was a closeted Christian. This causes Brooke to read the Bible a bit, and then in Sabrina's class the next day, she asks a question about whether Jesus' use of nonviolence was similar to Gandhi's and Martin Luther King Jr.'s. Sabrina says, yep, and mentions a few Bible verses and stuff, but that was the wrong move, you non-magical turd. Another student texts his mom or somebody that he was assaulted with Jesus words in class, and pretty much immediately Sabrina is dragged before the school council to apologize and or be beaten to death by dirty liberal fists. They demand she apologize for mentioning Jesus in any capacity, and her hot union lawyer agrees that she should do that, but she says, no, I shan't apologize. And the school acts like they might actually kill her, but they merely allow the ACLU to sue her. That's terrifying, because the prosecution team is led by none other than RoboCop's very own Leon Nash. And weirdly, he makes a point of saying that he intends to prove once and for all that God is dead, even though, what? What does that have to do with anything? Even if you win the case, how the heck does that prove that God is dead? Also, don't you know that RoboCop is basically Jesus? Did you learn nothing, Leon?
Don't touch me, man!
Anyway, Sabrina is naturally pretty surprised about how quickly this escalated, but as her non-Christian, probably very well-endowed lawyer explains, pretty much everybody thinks Christianity is gross. It's like as bad as smallpox or polio, which is interesting, because both of those require vaccines. Are they going to try and inoculate us from Christianity? Also, this terrible actress's dad is apparently a lawyer, though that never comes back up, and her real dad is Willie from Duck Dynasty, which explains why she is both in this movie and just the worst.
Now she's not even supposed to talk about it.
Elsewhere in the world, Pastor Dave has been selected for jury duty, and according to his orientation video, he will not be allowed to consume any weapons while in court.
Consumption of alcoholic beverages, non-prescription drugs, and weapons are prohibited in the courtroom.
He doesn't expect to be selected, though, because he claims he's just as likely to be struck by lightning, which, to be clear, is a 1 in 500,000 chance. He's in a pool of 800 people, of which they'll take 20. Apparently, lightning is extremely prevalent where they live. Maybe it's because they live in such an atheist den of debauchery and God is just smiting people left and right. During the jury selection process, we get an amazing glimpse of what this movie thinks a typical Christian is like, as evidenced by which types of people the defense wants and the prosecution doesn't want on the jury. Apparently, only atheists watch Pretty Little Liars, while only God-fearing Americans could enjoy Duck Dynasty.
What is your favorite TV show?
Duck Dynasty.
Volunteering at a faith-based charity is an automatic get-into-heaven free card, but if you're a teacher who has never broke the rules, then your next stop is breaking no rules in hell. Also, if you're a soldier, you're guaranteed Christian. There's no way around it. I don't make the rules. And of course, Pastor Dave ends up on the jury even though he's the most Christian of all because plot. Oh, and check out this sick guitar part. The guy who tried to kill Jesus RoboCop takes a second here to admit that he personally hates Sabrina because it's important for us to know that he's a bad guy. This isn't just a court case. This is persecution, guys, for real. It's happening. Now we're at the trial and the judge is Ernie Hudson, the Ghostbuster? And what is ghostbusting if not another form of witchcraft? Did the witches get a hold of this movie? Can I trust it to be fair and balanced when there's so much witchery in it?
If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.
Anyway, the whole deal here is that apparently neither faith nor Christianity is on trial. Merely Sabrina, the middle-aged Christian AP history teacher. And just realize that AP history isn't a thing. It's got to be European or United States or world. Presumably she's teaching American history, but they don't say it. So now I'm thinking it's a cover for teaching defense against the dark arts. And then the trial happens for like the rest of the dumb movie. The debate largely centers on whether church and state should be separated, to the point that teachers can't even mention the Christian-y parts of Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from a Birmingham jail. It's definitely a bit of a straw man argument though, seeing as it's not like we're actually giving kids redacted copies of the letter like it's a report on 9/11 or something, and also because Sabrina's offense is depicted as the most mundane, boring possible example. She merely quotes Jesus as a historical figure and even qualifies that certain biblical passages are merely ascribed to him. But the movie acts like the dirty secular culture will be too offended to handle the words Jesus or Bible or sliding your hands into a good old-fashioned American pie.
Hey, the food's still warm.
But whatever, the whiz-bang legal twist near the end of the film is they decide to change their focus to proving that Jesus, the historical figure, did exist in history. This is a pretty widely established fact, unless I'm missing something. It's just the him being literally God. That's the part that's a little disputed. It's like how everybody agrees that Abraham Lincoln existed, but only a few of us are brave enough to claim that he was also a vampire hunter. But the movie decides that's all they want to focus on, so everything devolves into thinly veiled TED Talks from real-life authors of books about Jesus' historical existence. And that's fine, I guess, but who do they think is watching this movie? Are they banking on some high-on-potweed hippie wandering into the wrong theater and being super moved by a series of boring history lessons? Seems more likely that everybody watching this movie already accepts this premise, right? So why am I here? Why am I watching this? Am I a hippie? Who am I? But then again, the defense lawyer with a definite six-pack on his jacked penis asks the jury, are facts not facts? And then he cites the date that we landed on the moon as an indisputable fact, as if there aren't any conspiracy theories surrounding that event, which makes me think, maybe they just don't know their audience that well. But anyway, while that whole debate rages on with thrilling book synopses by actual authors and not, competent actors.
And far worse, they're experiencing pressure like no other, unimaginable pressure.
Several subplots arise, like pastor sermons being subpoenaed, which is kind of sort of a thing that happened in real life, but ultimately went nowhere because it's a pretty clear First Amendment violation. But in this movie, it's the end times, baby! Christianity is under attack, and unless the silent majority fights back, then you'll get persecuted like so hard, audience members. And it's already happening in this movie, specifically, not like in real life. But it could!
I don't want to spoil your brunch.
Man, if only there were verses about how persecution is fine and chill the hell out, and maybe the point isn't maintaining political power. Oops, that was supposed to just be for me. Anyway, Pastor Dave refuses to submit his sermons because freedom. Honestly, not entirely sure what will happen if they're submitted exactly, but I am fairly certain that most pastors record their sermons and put them online, so it's not like they'll be tough to find, Dave. But to highlight how brave a decision this is, a mean old clerk man offers 2 different overused idioms.
You know the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, don't you? I have another saying. A nail that sticks up
gets hammered down.
And I've got a third one. The villain in a Christian movie usually doesn't get to be in any other movies. Oh, and also the friggin' car rental guy from the first movie returns as a waiter. Fine. He quit his job and Pastor Dave bought a Prius. Because freedom.
He bought a Prius.
Starts every time.
Then Martin's Chinese daddy surprises him in his dorm room and slaps him and tells him he's no longer a son because of his newfound faith. And man, these movies sure are establishing a fun theme of physically abusive minority parents disowning their children. What a cool thing! So anyway, this whole time Brooke hasn't been allowed to testify because she's too young and her parents don't want her to, I guess. But then she sees the African pastor sweeping, which he totally just likes to do, okay? He's not just a kindly minority stock janitor character, okay?
Sweeping is something I only do part-time.
Anyway, he and 15 other characters convince her that she can do something, like stage nonviolent sit-ins at the school and at the courthouse and remain shockingly calm while the dirty liberals flip out. You know, because conservatives always handle themselves so well during protests. But that's not enough for Brooke because she slams into the courtroom and demands to testify, which they just sort of decide to let her do in that exact moment and on a whim. I'm like 85% sure that's not how courtrooms work, but they let her anyway because they're really hammering home that this court case is not based on any real court cases. It's just whatever the hell they want it to be. During the examination, Brooke reveals that Sabrina told her about Jesus before class, which probably inspired her to ask about Jesus in class. So she was already Jesus tainted. Except that's not true, right? She found her dead brother's Bible that she read, and that's what got her to ask the questions. And even still, all of this is just so stupid and pedantic, which I realize is the point that the movie's making, but again, none of this is real. If a real case played out like this, that'd be interesting and maybe worth learning about. But if it's simply guided by the invisible hand of a screenwriter, then it means and is nothing. And I say this as somebody who is very stupid and pedantic.
It means nothing.
Anyway, Pastor David's appendix explodes, so he's replaced by, oh no, a girl with weird colored hair. This is the last straw, and Sabrina realizes they're screwed, so she just goes home to eat a massive off cupcake with her grandpa. Also, we get a fun promo for Mike Huckabee's show, along with some dude named Brooks, which is definitely a typo, right? People aren't allowed to spell their name like that.
How do you convince the skeptics?
Also, it's not that big of a deal, but they cut my guitar off at a weird-ass spot right here, and it sounds terrible. Either make it sound good or credit me. Or pay me. So whatever, all seems lost, but then when all hope is nearly extinguished, Hot Lawyer puts on a nice suit for a change and just starts screaming at Sabrina and forces her to testify. He screams that she should get fired because we should make America into an anti-religious communist state where the secret police murder everybody who believes in anything. Isn't that what you want, jury? Isn't that what you say that you want when you want to be mean to Sabrina?
Answer the question!
It's very weird. There's no way you could just yell crazy shit at the jury and the judge just lets it happen. Also, has he had a soul patch this whole time? I mean, that alone is grounds for disbarment. Anyway, I forgot that Amy is sort of in this movie and she has a blog and she's not sure if she's a Christian still, but then she calls the Newsboys mid-concert and they pray for Sabrina mid-concert, which is objectively the lamest stage banter of all time.
Amy's asked me to pray for this woman. Will you guys join me?
A newsboy prayer is second only to a Jesus prayer, and they win the case, and everybody goes outside to chant, God's not dead, he's surely alive, which again, is not what's at stake here. Like, when was God's aliveness on trial? I feel like they're all watching a different movie from me. Whatever. Then the newsboys sing a song about wanting to be guilty for God, which sounds filthy. And once again, the credits mention all the court cases this was apparently based on, even though, again, why not make the movie about an actual court case then? Also, is Dave still going to jail? I mean, his subpoena thing is still ongoing, yeah? Whatever. What I really want to know is if Sabrina and the Hot Lawyer are going to do it right there in the courtroom. They should. They won. God would understand. heck was that? Apparently, the third movie is a collaboration between Pure Flix and Quality Flix. Now all we need is a partnership with Uncut Flix, and we'll be ready to really party. And I guess I was right. Pastor Dave did go to jail for not turning in a sermon transcript, which again has to be available online, right? And if not, does the government assume that somebody sits in the back of a church transcribing what the guy up front says by hand? Of course not. This isn't your dusty-ass college lit class. This is the Lord's class. Also, I don't know why they need the transcripts. I don't know why he won't turn them in. Everybody's an idiot. Anyway, Dave is immediately released because, just like in real life, this was deemed unconstitutional. So that subplot is resolved, except not really, because now people are mad that a badass ex-convict pastor is in charge of a church on public school grounds. Apparently, Hadley University was built by Dave's church like 150 years ago, and then I guess it became secular because all things fall apart. Hold up! Kronk isn't directing this? That's bullshit! Also, yeah, I didn't help with the music. Oh, neither did Will. And it shows. This is the shittiest music in the whole series. Fun fact, did you know that Pastor Dave is a co-founder of Pure Flix? I always thought he was very pure. Anyway, the African pastor, apparently named Jude, is announced as the new co-pastor of Dave's church. But as they leave the church, somebody clearly throws a brick through a window, but Dave he's not convinced.
What was that?
They chase after the naughty youth, but he's too quick because his feet are aided by sin. Then Jude goes in the church and blows the fuck up! Holy shit! This movie is going hard. No more TED Talks, baby. We're doing fire bombings now. So Jude dies, and the church technically catches on fire, but it's clearly a fake CG fire. Apparently, nobody on the crew had the balls to burn down a real church for their movie. Suddenly, we see a title card that says 12 hours earlier. Did Christopher Nolan direct this? And what was happening 12 hours ago? Well, this attractive girl was swimming, apparently. Glad we flashed back to that. Her name is Keaton, but apparently has no relation to Batman. Well, that's weird. She's dating this guy named Adam who kisses her full on the mouth like an unclean secular. Then we cut to a dorm room where the rapper Swayze discusses alternate realities and the Mandela effect for no apparent reason or payoff, and maybe this is directed by Christopher Nolan. Or maybe it's a stealth Spider-Man 3 promo. Man, I hope Spider-Man 3 is this good. Kevin Feige is a genius. Anyway, Adam makes the mistake of saying Keaton's not really a Christian anymore, so she breaks up with him, as people in this series are wont to do. Then she goes to an on-campus ministry thing called the Harbor House, and who's running it? Well, it's Josh Wheaton's pure original uncut butt, baby!
I'm always here.
Still not related to Joss, which is weird. Apparently, he dropped out of law school so he could come crawling back to Hadley and do churchy stuff. Cut from there to the sexiest, craziest party you've ever seen in a Pure Flix film. It's so tantalizing. Adam throws a brick through the church window and then sneaks in the building to instigate a gas leak in the hopes of murdering Jude and burning down the church. I'm kidding. Apparently, Adam is so hella good at brick throwing, he manages to somehow open a gas tank with the brick on accident. So the whole murder thing is just a wacky misunderstanding. Sorry, Jude. Now the school really wants to close the church because people are dying there and there's tons of protests and picketing, and they don't outright say it, but they're also probably hoping that if the church leaves, the Newsboys will stop hosting concerts in the city. But how will they get rid of the church? Well, by buying it and knocking it down, citing eminent domain, apparently. Yippee! The railroad's finally coming to town! Whatever this town is called. Dave knows that he won't be able to fight the man by himself, so he drives to Chicago to crash his estranged brother's law firm. Turns out that his brother is both named Pierce and once had a big fat Greek wedding. Not to mention, he has a daughter who loves many boys.
Pulling out's not protection.
Oh my God, I'm getting it.
Dave convinces his brother, who isn't a Christian, to come be his lawyer. He's skeptical, but also he leaves his entire life in Chicago behind for what appears to be several weeks, despite not really being an expert in this type of law.
This is not really my thing.
Man, if only Josh Ultron wasn't my fault Wheaton had finished his law degree or something. Meanwhile, Adam is very sad about the whole murder thing, and he finds Keaton sitting in some bleachers with a bunch of other random people, including this extremely old man, because that's how college athletic fields look and operate, right? And everybody on the crew definitely went to college, right? Anyway, Adam admits everything to Keaton, who does the responsible thing and suggests that he not tell anybody else. Adam hates the thought that everybody thinks it was an intentional hate crime murder when really it was just a cartoony mishap. But honestly, given the chances of knocking open a gas tank with a brick through a window into a basement that just so happens to have a faulty, sparky light bulb are so low, police would probably still be on the lookout for a murderer even if he admitted to the brick throwing, or at least like Roger Rabbit.
I won't believe it. I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Later, Adam admits that he does actually hate the church, though, because his mom divorced his dad when he was abusive towards her, and their church just cast her out for leaving him. Interestingly, it's also mentioned offhand in a comedic way that Pierce has been divorced 3 times, and it's probably also worth mentioning that last year, Pastor Dave himself got divorced in real life, so organize all those thoughts into whatever conclusions you want. But anyway, here's Pierce just chilling at Dave's house and playing with stretchy men and throwing darts and an unexplained painting of a frog. But wait! They're about to bulldoze the church, and on a Sunday, no less? Chick-fil-A isn't even open yet, you bastards! So Pierce runs to find a judge who is actively in the middle of mass to obtain an injunction, and Dave stalls by filibustering with the Bible. Except, why wasn't Dave at church if it's Sunday morning? Just because his church isn't open doesn't mean he gets a day off. Bad Dave. Later, Dave and Pierce argue about Christianity and how Christians aren't really persecuted as much as they think they are. But then Dave says, yes, they are. Look at my life. Except your life is a movie, bruh. Unless the series is supposed to be science fiction or maybe an alternate multiverse scenario, Chris Nolan! You have done it again, you brilliant son of a bitch.
That is my job. That is my profession.
From there, Dave goes on a hot date with this woman who splits her time working at the food kitchen and also, with Charlie Sheen. Also, we get a few fun cameos from conservative heroes like Dana Loesch, Janine Pirro or somebody, and also the Newsboys, because of course! I can't believe they couldn't get any members of Duck Dynasty for this one. Probably explains why this movie completely freaking bombed compared to the first two. Anyway, Dave and Pierce decide to use the media to turn the president of the university, Dave's friend Tom, into a villain. This is extremely successful and culminates in Tom getting shit on by conservatives on Facebook and a brick thrown through his window.
What was that?
This is mostly treated as a good thing, or at least a successful thing. But anyway, Tom's not happy about it, so he goes over to beat the shit out of Dave, who also beats the shit out of Tom, and then they go inside, and Dave explains that Jesus was the ultimate social justice warrior, which sounds like the worst idea ever for a reality show.
Jesus was the ultimate social justice warrior.
A bit later, Dave gets an anonymous text that Adam blew up Jude, so he goes and beats the shit out of Adam. Somehow that's grounds for the cops to arrest Adam? Pierce and Dave argue some more with a bit of tasteful bisexual lighting, and Pierce decides he's going back to Chicago. So then Dave goes on another date where it's casually mentioned that she's a recovering alcoholic because that gives her character depth. Keaton does some sad swimming because, alright, I guess she's a swimmer. And then somehow the water changes her fingernails from gray to black. Could be a continuity error, or it could be another multiverse hint. And then the church itself becomes space. And now I'm convinced this is an Interstellar sequel, and Pastor Dave is Matthew McConaughey after he got melted by the black hole. But anyway, now Dave's had enough of being a shithead, and he decides to not press charges against Adam, and also kind of patch things up with Tom. He also drops the lawsuit and decides to take the money and start his own church somewhere else, which is a legitimately, surprisingly positive ending. He also makes a bunch of people light candles and which I suppose means that the community is healing, but doesn't really address how easy it was to sick a bunch of Christian assholes on Tom in the first place. But it's fine. They lit candles. Peace candles. Probably. And then we get credits, but without a request to join a movement, nor any court cases referenced. God may not be dead, but he's definitely getting a bit lazy. It was just a dream. I mean, I should probably still see a lawyer just to make sure I don't end up in jail, secular or otherwise, but I know God's Not Dead 4 is playing on the way, so maybe I'll hit that. Anyway. Oh, damn it! They stole all my lower half possessions! Damn it! God is dead!
Thanks for meeting me in my home office. It's just, why pay the overhead?
What is this, Wicker?
Just tell me what happened.
Weirdly, the whole movie begins with an intro from the PureFlix guy standing in front of a trailer and sort of explaining why they keep making these freaking movies. He says it's because he wants to bring God back into the classroom. But I think it's because he's divorced now and has nothing else going on in his life, and it probably also explains why he's living in a trailer too. So anyway, after that little spiel, Pastor Dave tees up a recap of the first 3 movies, which is literally what I've been doing. Asshole. He also claims that there will be spaceships and car crashes in the movie, and he laughs like it's a little joke, but is it? Okay, so the movie itself opens with a bunch of patriotic stock footage of Washington, D.C., presented over that famous Reagan speech about how every generation needs to earn its freedom, like how we're only ever one generation away from McDonald's paying their employees more and raising their prices. Then Pastor Dave nervously washes his face in the bathroom, presumably trying to get all the dirty liberal air off him. But then Christopher Nolan sneaks back into the editing room to add a 1 week earlier overlay. Just one scant week ago, a very Christian-looking suburban mom who just so happens to be a popular Christian singer in real life homeschools a bunch of neighborhood kids with the help of Pastor Dave, who teaches them the story of Noah. You know, the ark guy. Saved all the animals, was seen buck-ass naked by his son, and he was shamed. Anyway, we're just lucky that Pastor Dave made it at all, because as he says, prison ministry went long. You know how those prison ministries go long at 8 a.m. on a weekday? We've all been there, Dave. Elsewhere in the world, the Chinese guy Martin and the Muslim girl from the first movie, Aisha, have a discussion about political freedom that's less a conversation and more awkward recitations of potentially worrisome headlines about Christianity abroad. For example, Martin says he can't go back to China because Christians are so persecuted there. And they both admit that they feel very alone in their faith because their families don't like them anymore, because they keep making these movies. No! But on a happier note, a government rep checks on the homeschoolers and is not impressed with Pastor Dave's boring-ass, nudity-free rendition of Noah. He should have shown the kids the Aronofsky movie or something. Anyway, she recommends that the kids get sent to the public school nearby where they'll be forced to watch Mother every single day forever. And just to make sure conservatives watching this movie really hate this woman, she snottily claims to a kid that she is self-partnered, which caused the entire theater I was in to groan. Of course, that also could have been because everybody in the theater was over 60 and deep into their 3rd buckets of popcorn by this point. Ultimately, a judge agrees with her and says if the parents don't send their kids away, they'll get fined and eventually thrown in a secular jail, where they'll be forced to watch Requiem for a Dream every day. Also, we learn one of the kids is borderline special needs, and he's sad because his dad died during an Air Force training exercise because of a mechanical malfunction, but the mom claims that she knows what that really means, but what does it really mean? He was assassinated, abducted by aliens, died in a horrific mid-air autoerotic asphyxiation airplane accident. What the hell is she talking about? Anyway, a few of the parents and Pastor Dave head to Washington, D.C. to testify before a Senate subcommittee about why homeschooling totally rocks. This is an important theme in the film, as several characters mention how Christians have stayed out of politics for far too long, and they've allowed the country to backslide into godless, freedomless evil. And now, we gotta stand up and fight back, or else we'll end up like those horrible European countries with all their healthcare and their free college. The main reasons presented as why homeschooling is for cool kids are that they don't want to learn revisionist history, i.e., the founding fathers owned slaves. They want to be able to teach the Bible. They don't think the special needs kid would get the care he needs, which seems odd. And because their 2nd grader was handed a pamphlet explaining birth control. Oh, and also because China banned homeschooling it. And now look. There are additionally many comparisons to fighting the Nazis, which I guess is just like trying to homeschool your kids. I mean, that's what all those GIs died for, right? The right to teach your kid that Satan invented geometry, which is why mommy doesn't feel like teaching it today. Oh, subplot, this hot teen boy buys a hot car from a hot teen girl, and they sort of have a whole thing going on in the background, in case you were curious. Before the hearing, Pastor Dave meets with a friendly congressman who says that the real problem here is that liberals don't believe in truth, and they're using Common Core to destroy everything so they can gain power with which to promote their evil agendas. But that's a known fact, right? Everybody knows that. And also, Thanksgiving was like pretty Christian, and we don't say that in school a lot, so checkmate. We need homeschooling. Oh, and let's back up on that subplot. Uh-oh, the hot teen girl's hot not teen mom is the hot judge who said all those hot kids had to go to hot school. Ha twist. Secondary subplot, Aisha's car gets obliterated by a truck and flips approximately 30 times, propelling her into a coma. I guess there was at least one car crash. It was right. This gets her abusive dad to come see her, finally, and an old as shit doctor recommends that he pray for her. So he does, and they're united again at the end of the film when she wakes up. Spoiler. Double spoiler, nobody else in the film is ever aware that Aisha got hit by a car. Not even Martin, who texts her constantly throughout the film, Until she just stops texting him back, because she was hit by a car, and I guess he just stops thinking about her entirely. Kind of like I did, honestly, if we're being honest, which I strive to be. Then, back in the hearing, the single widow mom claims that she's super smart because she used to work at NASA. So don't act like Christians are anti-science and flat earthers. Double checkmate, you fictional Congress people, in this fictional setting. This fictional woman is canonically smart in this fictional world. Also, that sort of counts as a spaceship illusion, yeah? What other clues did Pastor Dave drop in that opening? Is my wife also going to leave me? Anyway, there's also much scoffing at fictional experts and several not at all veiled threats from Pastor Dave, who claims that if you attack the church will rise up and what? Overthrow the government? Sorry, I just don't see Pastor Dave and this Christian country singer usurping the federal government, no matter how many currently unemployed ex-NASA employees they have in their ranks. Also, his cell phone went off for like 3 minutes during the scene because, again, everybody in the theater was 60. Then the movie drops the final hammer. Did you know that 75% of homeschoolers aren't even conservative Christians? I mean, that's not literally true, since actually only about 25% aren't Christian, but I guess they found their own truth. But hey, this random woman says, yeah, I'm not a conservative Christian. I homeschool my kids so they don't have to get vaccinated, which totally sounds like a progressive stance. Also, again, everybody in the theater cheered at this line, which means I 100% have COVID now. So, and I guess you do too. Sorry. This inspires Pastor Dave to go back into the hearing and yell a bunch about freedom and why it's so important, how they're stealing our freedom, and the governments should work for us, damn it. And the movie doesn't show us if they win, because it's not actually a court case, so none of it actually matters, but the hot judge lady does decide not to throw them in jail. So that's nice. Also, apparently some guy named Poncho did the music. They got Don Quixote right here. They go with Poncho. And then finally, we get another hashtag God's Not Dead for those that want to, meet up, talk about God, maybe storm the Capitol or something. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
No, I mean, like, what happened with the dream?
Oh, yeah. They put me in a secular jail because I doubted God's aliveness.
Why not a Christian jail?
That's a great question.
Were you wearing pants at the movie?
No, it's not. The pants store wasn't on the way to the theater.
Oh, yeah. You're definitely going to jail for that. Secular, too.
Ah, crap.